Now, in the world of Breath of the Wild, we usually just run around mountains, fly over beautiful meadows, and stand on mighty hills. But now in the next game, we will see something that we haven't seen in ages. Something completely new for Breath of the Wild. Floating islands. This is something we originally saw in Skyward Sword, but now it's coming back to the series in Breath of the Wild 2, as we can clearly see in the trailer. However, as soon as I saw them in that new trailer, I started thinking about something. Where did they come from? They weren't there before, so why are they there now? Well, at the end of the day, we don't really know. And this also goes for every other Zelda tuber on this wonderful website. However, I think I finally found the answer. They were always there. They didn't magically appear, they were always there. Now let's jump into this video so I can explain why these Sky Islands were always part of the world. Let's go. Now first we will take a look at the island seen in the trailer. We need to get some sort of understanding after all. We can see big ones, small ones, pathways across these islands, old ruined buildings, and even buildings that look fine and could have people in them. And of course, you can't forget the weird technology seen on these islands as well. Like the gigantic robot from the trailer. Clearly, people live here. Or used to at least. Although it kinda looks like people are still there. And if you look at the islands closely, you can see that they aren't really new. We haven't seen anything like it on mainland Hyrule. All of them look different from what we see below. So these islands must have been there for ages. However, some people speculate that these islands only rose up into the sky when Ganondorf was reawakened. And that's all because the castle in the trailer rises up ominously like the one seen in Ocarina of Time. However, I think they're wrong. Because it doesn't explain all the roads, ruins, and other stuff seen on these Sky Islands. It explains almost nothing really. So there must be a better answer, right? Well, yes, and I actually found the answer in Skyward Sword, a game that's filled to the brim with lore. It's the starting point for the entire franchise after all, story-wise at least. Now in the beginning of it all there was peace, and people lived on the surface of the world happily. But then, out of nowhere, the Demon King Demise arrived and started wreaking havoc, which forced Hylia, the defender of this realm, to take the mighty Triforce, which was left behind by the gods that created the world, and set it on a piece of land together with the Hylians, and shot it up into the sky. That's why you start off in the sky in Skyward Sword. This piece of land came to be known as Skyloft. And this is where the Hylians ended up, while the biggest war in the history of the entire franchise was taking place downstairs, on the surface of the world. Now in the end, they lived up there for centuries, and that's because the world below was still way too dangerous, even though Demise was sealed away and sort of defeated. In the end, a lot of people even forgot about the world below, and thought it was just a barren wasteland, or that it didn't exist. But in the end, as we can see in Skyward Sword, a hero rose up, went down to the surface world, which was actually filled with quite interesting life, and defeated the once evil Demon King that was sealed away. Which created a bunch of other problems, but we're not here to explain that, alright? That's way too much to get into, my lord. I have more videos if you want to know about that. And so, because of that, people could come back to the surface world and start their life there. Which they did. That's how the Kingdom of Hyrule was created. But in the end, we don't know what happened to the people who lived up in the sky and stayed there, as well as the other islands that were floating around there as well. Because Skyloft wasn't the only one. There were many big and small islands there, with all kinds of people living on them. So now the big question is, do we see these islands in Breath of the Wild 2? Well, personally, I think the chances are quite high. We don't know what happened to them after all, so it's certainly possible. But there are still some big questions unanswered. That must be answered, because otherwise, this video would be kinda bad. For example, why are there no islands in the sky in the first Breath of the Wild game? We see nothing after all. And if they are up there, how would we ever get there? Well, all of these questions can actually be answered with information from Breath of the Wild and Skyward Sword. These two games combined give us all the information we would ever need. First of all, why can't we see the islands at all? If you look up in the sky, you can see nothing. So, they aren't there, right? Well, no. And the answer is actually quite simple, because it was all explained in Skyward Sword. Now in that game you have the sky and the surface world, and they are cut off from each other by a magical barrier. You can't see the world below, and you can't see the islands above. There's something in between that you can't really see that well, and it's called the cloud barrier. This is a layer of clouds that Loftwings won't even fly through, even though they were the main form of transportation back in Skyward Sword. And so many Skyloftians don't actually know what's down there. They just think it's some sort of forsaken barren wasteland, and that there's absolutely nothing down there. But in the end, in Skyward Sword, when Link meets Vi and gets the Goddess Sword, he receives something quite special. It's called the Emerald Tablet, and it illuminates a pathway through the clouds to Faron Woods, which kickstarts his whole adventure. And each time Link places this ancient tablet at a goddess statue, it lights up a new pathway through the clouds, creating some sort of opening through the cloud barrier, allowing Link to get through it and reach the surface. And I think this special barrier is still in place in the world of Breath of the Wild. This is what divided the surface world from the sky world all along. It was always there, and I can prove it. Because there's one piece of evidence that completely confirms this. The dragons. There are a total of 3 of them, and each of them is a master of a different element. All of them are gods in their own right, and they represent the 3 goddesses that originally created the world of Hyrule. Now overall their role in the game is quite small. One of them must be freed from the grasp of Calamity Ganon, and overall you need to collect parts of them in order to unlock certain shrines. And that's kind of it. However, in the game, you can see something quite cool when they are leaving the world of Hyrule. They go through some sort of special cloud portal that separates the surface from the sky. You can see this every time they either come to the world of Hyrule or leave it. And as you can see, it looks a lot like a... And so because of that, I think the islands in the sky have always been there. But we just never saw them because of this special barrier.
But Wily, is that really how it works?
Well, yes, because in Skyward Sword, you also can't see the islands in the sky, or even the cloud barrier itself. However, it still is a thing, even though you can't see it in either of the 2 games. So, were the islands there all along? Well, I guess we will find out in time. But be sure to let me know down below what you think. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video. Tell me down below what you think of this new style that I'm doing and everything. Do you like it more or less? Whatever the hell. Give me feedback, please. And be sure to check out my other videos, leave a like and all that good stuff. And then I'll see you all soon. Mwah!